Welcome everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to have everybody out here to this wonderful nursery today. My name is Ian Mathis. If you're on our figs, I'm backwoods Southern lawyer. I'm kind of backwoods, and unfortunately I am a lawyer, but I'm also an avid fig lover, and I'm very fortunate to get to partner with Angel Miller to put together the Fig Frolic for our third. Fourth? Third. We missed a year in the pandemic. We missed a couple of years here and there. So, but I have to absolutely give all the credit to this. I'm getting the signs. Third. I got to give all the credit for organization, the amazing marketing, and everything on the organization to this to Angel Miller. I just show up with a pretty face. I'm not doing a good job, but also to Angel's husband Michael, what we call Cowboy. There he is, back in the room there. We are set to start off. We have several wonderful speakers here today. Our very first speaker is, you go by Randall or Randy? Randall White, who's White RK on our figs. So wonderful fig aficionado, and there's a lot of stuff we're going to learn from him today. He's also filming for his YouTube channel today, which I'll let him describe a little bit. I definitely would like you guys to check that out. There's a lot of great content there, and it's our pleasure and honor to have Randall speak to us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. A round of applause for Ian and Angel for putting this together. I think they have a very nice event and a very nice location. Thank you for not sticking us out in the woods with no food. Thanks, Cowboy. I appreciate it. Everything you do. Like you said, I'm Randall White. I've been a fig collector probably since 2015 was whenever I first picked up. I was sitting at work one day, and I remember back in whenever I was in the Navy and I was in Egypt, and I was walking through the dirt streets, and the street vendors had some nice big purple figs, and I was like, wow, those are nothing like the brown turkey I grew up with. So I'm sitting there working, I'm like, I remember that. I wonder what variety that was. So I got on Google and I started searching figs in Egypt, and one search led to another that I found figs for fun forum. And I discovered there's a whole world of figs and fig collectors out there that I had no idea about. I was just blown away. I was like, I have got to get involved with this because I love figs. I grew up as a little kid. My grandmother's tree is probably about 70 years old now, but it's probably as wide as from the edge of those blue tents to over here where those chairs are, big around. That's how big that tree is. And I still go out there today because I only live a mile from where my grandparents live, and I pick figs off that tree still. And it's got nice big limbs. And as a kid, me and my cousins used to climb up in that fig tree and eat figs. And she'd come out with a switch, get out of my fig tree. I use those figs to make preserves with. And that's another thing that I fell in love with as a kid, was all those wonderful fig preserves that my grandmother would make. And I guess there's a little bit of nostalgia when it comes to figs with me. And so that's been my start as a fig collector. I went out to LSU. It was my very first event, to the Bergen orchard they had out there where they did all the LSU experimental figs. And I got to sample some of those figs, and they, just a couple months later, they bulldozed all those nice trees down. So they were like, take all the cuttings you want and get rid of this orchard. And it was at that point they had Smith, and everybody that was there got to sample Smith. And I'd never heard of Smith, and nobody else had really heard of Smith at that time. And when we all had Smith, we came back and we were like, you guys have got to try Smith fig. That thing is amazing. And so that was my first fig event. And from there, I went over and I visited a nice man, Herschel. Some of you older people, when Herschel was active in the fig community, I went to visit Herschel, and he hooked me up with all these different varieties and got me started with figs. And he asked me if I ever grafted a fig. And I said, no, Herschel. I said, I've always wanted to graft as a kid because I'm a gardener. And I love fruit trees. I have 120 varieties of fruit in my orchard. And I said, grafting is something I've always wanted to do. And he goes, well, come on, I'm gonna teach you how to graft. Because he's a professional grafter. He grafts thousands of pecan trees a year as an income. And so he took me over to his big refrigerator out in his barn, and when he opened that door, it was stacked from top to bottom with fig cuttings. Probably 1,000 fig cuttings in there. And he grabbed one out and he walked over to his brown turkey that he had out in his yard, and he showed me how to do the 4-flat banana graft. And luckily, whenever he showed me how to do that, that graft is still taken. And every once in a while when I talk to Herschel, he's like, yeah, the graft is still there, still doing good. So my very first attempt at grafting was a success, and that began me grafting from then on. And now I have trees in my orchard. My very first tree I ever put in my orchard was an apple tree, and I have 7 varieties on that. I have pears that probably have about 10 varieties on my pear tree, and I just love grafting. As a matter of fact, I'm looking over here a while ago when I was getting ready, and there's some wild pear varieties, or wild pear, that are growing right there, little seedlings, little saplings. And so whenever I harvest my scion wood from my pear trees, I go to my neighbor's field, which I have permission, and I graft over those little wild ones to fruiting varieties so that he will have fruiting pear on his property. And so that's what I like to do. I like to graft. And so, and whenever I was asked, what do you want to speak on here today? And I was like, there's nothing I can speak better on than grafting, because I love grafting. And I know that there's a few people that graft in the fig community, but I'm not sure how many people are grafting. If you ever grafted a fig, can you please raise your hand? I just want to see how many people are actually doing it. We've got 2 or 3 out there. Okay, we do have a YouTube channel. Flomaton Famous is the name. If you are a YouTube person, Flomaton Famous. Flomaton, Flomaton. It stands for Florida, FLO, MA for Alabama, and then TON for town. So it's Florida, Alabama town. We literally live from here to the road from the Florida state line. So we live right on the state line. My old YouTube channel is called Floribama Homestead. You've probably seen some of my videos where I went out and I interviewed Cajun Bee, Brian, down in Louisiana. That seems to be a pretty popular video for me. And I did that under the Floribama, but then the owners of Floribama Lounge reached out to me and said, that name's trademarked, you can't use it, you gotta let it go. Here's some free drink passes, come by and see me. And I was like, well, homesteading really I wasn't sure if homesteading really described what I do anymore, since I do a variety of stuff on my channel. So it was just kind of the gateway for us to change our name, and Michelle came up with the Flomaton Famous thing, because everybody in our little small town of 1,800 people is famous for something. As a matter of fact, the most famous person we got in our town right now is a moonshiner. He just got arrested. And he has his own TV show called Alabama Shine, and he was also on that moonshiner's TV show. He lives about 2 miles from me. He and I grew up together. I know him very well. So he's the most Flomaton famous person right now. Okay, why graft? We are going to take advantage of a strong rootstock. That's why we're grafters. If you have a rootstock that does very well in your area, like brown turkey is known to be a very precocious growing tree. And some of the LSU varieties here in the South tend to be a very strong growing tree. And so if you have one of those type of trees in the ground, it does very well for you. Start some air layers or root some cuttings, grow those up for a year, cut them off, and then put your new favorite varieties or your high risk varieties on top of that for a greater chance of growing success. Now, I have some brown turkey at home that I plan to root to, and I have been given multiple varieties of raspberry latte, and I cannot get raspberry latte to root for me. So next time I get some cuttings, I'm going to graft those onto one of my root stocks. I heard that raspberry latte roots very easily for people. Does anybody else have that? Yes, no? Yeah?
I got lucky. All my rooted.
All yours rooted? I'm jealous.
I got lucky.
So I've got some varieties I want to try. Now, if you have a high dollar variety, I was watching some guy, he said, hey, I just paid $200 for this variety of cutting. Just a cutting, it's crazy. Since Big Bid came on scene, blows my mind what people pay for a cutting these days. Back when we first started, it was trade only. Yeah, everybody's like, hey, can I get a cutting of that? Sure, what do you have? I will trade you cuttings. And thank God that's what we are here doing today, trading. Thank you for bringing that, Angel and Ian. Thank you for making this a trade-only event and not for sale. Because there's a lot of people out there that can't fathom the idea of paying $100 for a fig tree. And I can, but I don't want to. Man, it hurts to pay that much money for a fig tree. So we're going to take advantage of a strong root system. Some area have nematode issues, and I know there's some research going on in Florida. What variety of fig tree is best for the nematodes? I know brown turkey seems to do okay. So some people are experimenting with the brown turkey variety, and there are others. So if you have something that does very well for you, again, start some rootings and get those started and graft to them if that tree does well for you, so that you have a good strong tree. Another benefit of grafting is if you have a variety that you don't like, and you're not sure if you want to keep it or get rid of it, one thing you can do is graft over the top of it and bury the stem of that, and so you get rid of it. There's a risk of winter dieback, that if it totally dies back and it starts coming back from around the root zone area, you're not quite sure what you're going to get. You're going to get the rootstock, or are you getting the variety that you grafted onto? So you're going to have that risk. So you can preserve varieties that you want to get rid of or not sure you want to get rid of. So if you graft that and you decide later down the road, like, hey, some people over here are saying this is a pretty good fig and I used to have it, let me give it another shot, to pull that dirt back a little bit, give it a little bit of sunlight, and probably propagate a sprig from the root zone and reclaim that tree. So you can do that. So that's another benefit of cuttings or grafting, is preserving roots, preserving varieties. Another good reason to do grafting is, who lives in an area of less than an acre? Are you running out of space in your yard? You can say that. Out of those people, how many people have a Franken tree? Andy's come up with the term Frankenfig. He's a doctor down in Louisiana, and he had one tree, and he grafted 50 varieties onto it. It got to be a nice big tree. But it's a wonderful idea that if you're running out of space in your yard and you just want to add varieties, but you don't have all these spaces for all these trees, you can do a Franken tree. You can graft all these varieties onto one tree so that you have those varieties. You can also graft just to preserve genetics. So you can graft just one limb, keep that one limb whatever size you want to dedicate for that variety. And that's another one of the benefits of grafting is being able to preserve space. Now, where do people get all their fig varieties from? I know FigBid is probably one of the most easiest places to get it from. Nobody trusts eBay anymore because you don't know what you're going to get. And there are a lot of scammers on there, like the latest and greatest fig pops up, and all of a sudden they want $200 for it, and you end up with a Celeste. Man, that would just really burn my toast. Who all's got burned from that one before? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I have not gotten burned from that one, thank goodness. I've always been skeptical of eBay. Another place is the Our Figs forum. You can generally trust all our good members there to be honest and forthcoming with what variety they have to trade with. And that was the original place to trade with. You go to the forums and you go to the trading tab, and then you can make connections and then trade scions from there. Another one was maybe Etsy. Etsy's kind of questionable. You can get burned there, and you can also find some collectors. And there are collectors that sell, and they sell on all those sites under the same name. And so you learn and become familiar with who's a good seller, who's not a good seller, and who to trust. All right, now, if I had some scion wood here to show you how to graft, we'd really go into good detail, and I would get you guys good and familiar with grafting. I had one request for Christmas this year, and most guys would say, I want this nice expensive thing, I want this truck, I want a boat, I want what? I said, I want a grafting knife. That's the one thing I want for Christmas, and my daughter got me a grafting knife, and I tell you what, I've gotten good use out of this thing. I've already had to sharpen it multiple times, but this one's made by Velco, which is a company of Victorinox. Is anybody familiar with Victorinox? Wonderful knives. I can't say good enough about these knives. We use a Victorinox knife to do our butchering on our little homestead. When we butcher our animals, we use a Victorinox knife, and it's just, it doesn't even compare with a normal kitchen knife. You can spend hundreds of dollars on all these fancy kitchen knives, but if you get a $20 Victorinox, you've got something. Do not go anywhere else for butchering knives unless you go above what Victorinox is, but affordable and very good. So
Spell it. Victorinox.
Victorinox. Victorinox. Victorinox. Yeah. You can find it under like Grafting Knives and Victronox or something like that. But they have a nice variety. All your top butchers generally use Victorinox. And I've seen multiple YouTube butchers, and that's what they use in their videos also, is Victorinox. Good knives. A lot of people say don't buy these for grafting knives if you're going to do a lot of grafting. Herschel does not use these. These break. These do not hold an edge. For the amount, if you're going to do 1,000 trees a day, you need like tool steel, stuff you would make like carbide tip blades from. So he would take M2 steel, which is almost impossible to grind to a point, and he would spend hours, and he would hand make his grafting knives, and they would last all day in the field for him and never go dull. But the quality of the steel is far superior than anything you're going to find. But he would also charge like $200-300 for his knives if he would make you one too. So grafting knife, some people will use a razor blade. I got this one from Harbor Freight for 50 cents. If you're just going to do a few trees, 10 or 12 trees in your backyard for a season, a little 50-cent razor knife. It's going to be good for grafting, for making good clean cuts. Some people will say you're going to need to sterilize your knives, and if you are known to have disease issues in your orchard, yes, do that. I've never sterilized any of my knives that I know of, and I've had pretty good success with grafting. Pack of rubber bands to hold your graft tight. Now, one of the other things, does anybody know what these are? Yep. That's right. Get them on Amazon. You can get like 6 of these for like $10. This is probably my favorite thing to play with in the fig orchard field is an air layer ball. These come apart. You put potting soil or whatever, sphagnum peat moss or whatever in here on both sides. You can choose to prep your wood however you want to prep it, or don't prep it at all. I've had success with no prep. Wrap these around a limb, 6 weeks later you have a plant. Snip that off, take that off, put it in the pot, boom, air layers are that easy. And I love these. And it's just an air layer propagation ball. I don't know what the name, but I put that in Amazon, that's what comes up. People have asked, what size? this is the large. They got medium and they have small. I have all the sizes, and this is the only one that I use. The small ones are about this big around and completely worthless. I've tried them on small things in shade, out of the sun, and man, it's just a waste of time doing something like this. Yes, sir.
Do you have to water it much?
I live in a very rainy area. I've never watered these. I never watered these. I get
Water it
enough.
at the beginning and
Yeah, just use a little moistened soil. In this area, you should be okay to put your potting soil in there. If you water it, it's going to root faster. My fig trees are a little bit away from my propagation area, so I usually don't think to go out there and water these. But then every once in a while, I'll be like, oh yeah, I put an aerator on 6 weeks ago. Let's go check on it. I'll pop it open, it's got roots. But the reason I like these and not the black ones now is because I can look in there and see if it's got roots or not.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do if you're going out in the field and you want to protect these roots from burning? Wrap some aluminum foil around it, keep the sun off of it so you don't scorch the roots. And then if you want to check on it in a few weeks, you just pull the aluminum foil back and see if you got roots or not. So that's what I do. I started off with the black ones, and the black ones did really well, but then I'd have to open it up and potting soil would fall between the grooves. It was a little aggravating to check and see if I've got roots. So I just went to these, and these are the ones I recommend and I prefer now. Grafting tape. You can get this on Amazon. Yes, sir.
I got a question. How long does those last? How many uses do you get out of it before you have to replace it?
I don't know. I've had the black ones for several years now, and I've never had an issue with them breaking down in the sun. That was my concern. So I guess it's UV protected plastic. So I've gotten 3 years out of one.
Black usually has natural UV protection.
Does it?
And the clear ones, if you cover them with foil, they're not going to get sun.
Yeah, you should be able to preserve it from breaking. Thank you. Thank you. Grafting tape. You put this around your joint, and like I said, this will be an added section of this video. If you go back later in a couple of days, I'll have it posted, and I'll do an up-close demonstration of actually doing a graft. If anybody has any trees we can hack up, I can show you today. Yeah, I didn't think so.
Hey, do you have one?
uh-oh.
You want to do some grafting? We can.
A mega tool was pretty good.
Yeah. The very first tool I ever bought, as soon as Herschel taught me grafting, I bought this on Amazon for less than $20. It's the Omega grafting tool. And the reason they call it Omega is because there's a blade right down here where this orange piece is that is Omega shaped like a puzzle piece. So when you cut cut your rootstock and you have that V in it, and then you cut your scion wood with the tab in it, these go together like a puzzle. And this is the easiest thing to do. And yeah, what do we have here? LSU purple. I got no problems with this because it's not one of my favorites.
I agree.
Don't let John hear you.
Do you want to just come up afterwards and come in close, and then we'll do a grafting
Yeah,
demonstration?
better.
I think so. Let's do that. So we'll set this aside, and we'll do a couple of grafts. We'll start high and then work our way low and do several grafts off this one too. Thank you very much. Well, that'll be a really good demonstration. Sorry I didn't bring a lamb to do that with. Yes. What was that? Okay. So when I bought the grafting tool, grafting tools are good for introductory grafting. If you have just a few grafts that you want to try to do, you can get one of these. And then this is basically just a big confidence builder. If you can do this and it takes, you're like, I can do grafting. And then you put these in your drawer somewhere. I've actually thought about giving this one away. I don't use it very much. And get yourself a knife, and then those are faster and they're fun because you can do different styles of grafting, and that's the fun part of it when you get these different styles and you see the results from what you learn on how to graft them. So if you've got a few bucks, grab a grafting tool off Amazon, and you won't regret it. It's fun. It's not a big expense to do this. So. All right, I hear you on. Let's go ahead and wrap it up, guys. Anybody have any questions? Thank you, Miss Jackie. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, although it doesn't necessarily refer to figs, one other reason for doing the grafting is if you have like a fruit tree, a lot of them, if you don't have one of a different variety, they won't bear fruit.
Oh, absolutely. You're right. Outside of figs, that and I had that in my grafting speech that I give,
Right.
but I left it out of figs because we don't really pollinate
Yeah.
in the grafting community in this area. Is cross-pollination. So if you have an apple, you can put one variety on a tree of another variety, and then boom, all of a sudden you have cross-pollination. And so that's a huge benefit. And another one that I like to throw out there, and it does not apply to the big community, not a lot of people talk about, is your research universities, whenever they're creating new varieties, they'll put thousands of seeds of an apple in an orchard. And then they come along and they after it grows for a year, they'll snip that off and make a scion, put that on a mature tree. The next year it fruits as if it's a mature tree, rather than wait for 5 to 8 years for that tree to get up and start fruiting. It's just a way for them to accelerate the breeding process. So that's another benefit of grafting also. All right, any more questions? All right, thank you guys. It's got good sap flowing, so you want to come in here about the same size on your scion wood. Right in there, right there somewhere is probably where you want to take.
Like up underneath the nose.
That doesn't matter so much. You're just looking for the diameter of the
The
wood.
diameter, gotcha. So really, the nose part really doesn't
That's
matter.
good. Now pull all those leaves off. You'll lose all your moisture. There you go.
Can you do this any time of the year? I mean, in the summer? Or?
This type of grafting is when it's dormant, and then you have your scion wood you're pulling out of your refrigerator,
Yeah.
and buds are just starting to push growth. That's when you want to do this type of cleft grafting.
Oh, so that's when you want to do
Yeah,
grafting.
but your scion wood has to be dormant.
I got you.
Okay.
You could do this up to July on growing trees because it's still pushing good sap.
Right.
Now, the only time that you can do grafting is if the plant is actually growing. If it's going dormant and it's not pushing new growth, this union's not going to take, and that scion is going to fail, and
It's
the
gonna-
graft's not going to take. So
Right.
it has to actively be growing when you're doing
So
grafting.
So it's like the complete opposite. You want to do it as the sap comes up, not when it's going down.
That's right. That's right. Now, in the middle of summer, like from July to September,
Yeah.
even right now it's kind of iffy, you can do bud grafting. And if you do bud grafting, that's the optimum time of the year. Just take a little bud, chop the leaf off, cut your bud off, put it on the tree, and boom. Right. So you get your scion wood.
That's the purple.
Yeah, you can do the purple on top of the white. I don't recommend that. Now, when you're doing grafting, the secret is you got to line up the cambium layers. So see how this wood is just starting to go lignified. It's still green.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you line up an outside edge. Both edges do not have to line up, but you have to line up one side.
Oh, just one side?
Just one side has. Yep. And you can feel with your finger to make sure you got a smooth transition right there.
Okay.
Does rooting hormone help
No,
this process?
not at all. We're not creating roots. Okay, now your wax tape is all this is just wax.
I mean, that's too delicate. You can do it.
So I take my grafting wax tape and I just give it a little stretch. That way it's easier to adhere to to itself.
Just a curious question. Before you put your tape on, Do you need to kind of like dip it in anything, or just put it directly straight on it and then just tape it?
That's right. That's right. So kind of start your tape a little below the graft. Give it a little tilt because you're going to wrap it up. Just a little tug until you wrap it onto itself. You just kind of wrap it. All this is going to preserve moisture loss. Just give it a nice tug so that it adheres to itself. Make sure that grafting is in there and you didn't move it very much. Then you can take a rubber band just a bag of rubber bands from Walmart. Go well below the graft union, loop it back on itself, and keep the rubber band flat, but give it a nice little stretch. Just wrap it up over the graft union. And that's all that's going to do is hold those flaps together so that it'll heal. Once you go over that graft union, you can come back down and you can go a little tighter if you want to. Just tie it off back onto itself. All right, that should work. Since this is green wood, it won't work. This needed to be dormant, but this is just a demonstration purpose only.
Let me ask you this. How do you know when you need to take that off?
When you start seeing growth coming up here,
Yep.
about a month later, once you start seeing growth, you can go ahead and cut this rubber band and take it off. All my grafts, this rubber band breaks down in about 4 to 6 weeks in the sun, and I never break this. I never take it off. It just
It
naturally
automatically
decays.
comes off itself.
So you said this won't work because it's green?
Yeah, if this was dormant and we put it on top of a growing tree, it would work.
How do you do that? How do you time that?
So if you have your scion wood in your refrigerator, you know it's dormant.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah,
So you can't graft when it's
when it's actively growing season. If this is freshly growing, it,
So there's no
80%
chance
no.
at all?
There is a chance it will take, but it's slow. It's slow. Yeah.
So is March your best time of year?
Yes. Yep. So from February, as long as your scion wood's dormant, you can graft all the way through into July. And I did some grafts in July this year and they grew. Matter of fact, I took scion wood out of my refrigerator in August and stuck them in the ground, and that grew too. Right out, started rooting. So.
And if you see growth on the top, is it pretty certain that
That it's taken.
your graft is healed?
Yeah. Now, if it's down the road,
You don't need protection after that point.
right. Now, immediately you start seeing growth. Like the next day, it could be the sun drawing those buds out, and then it would still fail. But if that started growing, and then you really start getting some nice growth on it, you know you're good.
But you don't have like disease issues on the actual graft once you see growth on the top. So the 4 to 6 weeks later.
Yeah, 4 to 6 later, you got some growth on there, you're good.
So is it good to, after you've grafted, is it best to kind of keep it in the shade, or is it actually best to let the natural sun
Okay,
have it?
so if you have an active growing tree, you have a dormant scion, you do your graft, I would stick it out in the sun, because the sun's going to cause that plant to start pushing growth. You want the warmth.
But if it's in a pot, it would be totally different then.
I put my pots out in the sun too.
Well,
Yeah. I do all my grafting out in the open orchard anyway. So.
You don't need to cover up on the top part?
If it's hot, some
Dry
people
out.
will put aluminum foil over it to kind of protect that graft from the sun.
Lose moisture.
Yeah, losing moisture. That's a risk. But, yeah, I generally don't worry about it in early spring.
No. Yeah, it's humid.
Yeah, it's humid. It's not that hot. It's not rapidly drying out. Okay, now if you want to do like a cleft graft, I'm gonna come down here.
I mean, you can complete that.
Okay, I'm just gonna cut this one off since we did this type of
Yeah,
thing.
right.
So if you want to do a cleft graft, so we just give this a nice 1-inch split. Just work it nice and slow. Don't get in a hurry because you will bust out. And then up here we're going to see about right there. Just make a V.
But did you intentionally split the bud on?
Yeah, that don't matter to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was part of it.
Nah. Now, come in here close, you see that there's green wood right there? That's the cambium. That's the active growing section, not the white, not the brown, but that green wood, that's what actively grows. That is what's got to make contact with your rootstock. Then we just pop that right down in there. Like that. Make sure one side is flush. See, I got one side flush. I'm not worried about what's going on back here at all. Don't worry about that. Don't try to center your scion wood into your rootstock. Just make sure that one edge lines up. You want those cambium layers to match. A bit of grafting tape over it, just to preserve that moisture. And then again with the rubber band, well below it, goes back on itself. There's a nice tub, and just work your way up the graft unit. Now when you're wrapping your graft, your rubber band around your graft, don't go above the graft unit, just go up to where your rootstock stops right there. And then come back down and give it a nice tug, tighter to hold that pressure on. Alright, and then that's how you do a cleft graft.
Left.
Now if you are doing a big rootstock, just a little bit of limb, you want to cover up that rootstock area so you're not losing moisture or getting bugs down there. Get a little $10 bottle of tree coat. It's like tar, and you coat that big wound with, and it'll prevent bugs and moisture loss.
So you're talking about the side grafts, like big tree, like let's say you cut this tree on the circle, you put plants all those little ones,
Yes.
and then you put this on the top.
So what you want to do is during the active growing season, the bark slips away from the tree, and now you see that green cambium layer in there. So if you can cut into that bark, you kind of pull that away, and you stick your stick in there, and then it'll grow. Yep. All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Randall. Now I'm ready to trade figs. I just want to come on here and say a special thank you to Angel and Ian for inviting me out to come speak at the event. I was really deeply honored to ask to speak at your event. I had a wonderful time, my wife had a wonderful time, and I know every member that I talked to there was having a wonderful time. And later on that evening, even well up close to after the event was well over and we had dinner, the dinner was over, I was so high on the enthusiasm of the event, it was just hard to go to sleep. Sorry you had to suffer through the poor audio. We had a malfunction with the microphone system. So next time we'll have that corrected, and any future videos you see from me will have better audio, I guarantee it. Now, at the event, I was really blown away at the quality of the figs that were donated for the white elephant. Now you'll see some of the clips of the figs that were on the table that were up for grabs. Now for me, my wife drew, and she was able to pick up this nice Glacia Negra. And this is a first year rooted from cutting tree by Randy. And I'm almost 6 foot tall, and this rooted cutting is well over my head. Beautiful tree. I've never seen anything as magnificent as this from a first year rooted cutting. And thank you, Randy. Whatever you're doing to grow these out, keep doing it, man, because you've got it nailed down. That's in a little, that's in a really small trade pot. That's less than a 3 gallon, but bigger than a 1 gallon. I don't know what size pot that is, but wonderful tree. Glacia Negra, I saw Yolo Bypass, Thermalito was there to be traded with, Black Madeira KK, and I'm just naming some of the top figs that I saw that was there. Red Lebanese, Baca Valley. I actually ended up getting that one whenever I drew my numbers for the white elephant, so I picked up a wonderful tree also. After the white elephant was done, there were some leftover trees that Angel brought with her, and I was able to also pick up a yellow long neck fig and bring that back with me also. And I noticed also there were some LSU Golds on the table, and there are a few other varieties that were left over, donated by people who brought figs to give away. If you've never been to an event, I highly encourage you, if you have an interest in figs, just go check out one of these events. They're a lot of fun. Getting around, talk to everybody about what's good in the area, what they've had good luck with, and you'll find out that some people will have a different ranking of figs than other people will in other areas of the United States. This event was held in Chattanooga. We drove over 400 miles to go to this event. We had one lady, Figgly Wiggly, on the Our Figs forum. She drove over 500 miles from Ohio to come to this event. And when she left, I believe, I got the impression from her that she also had a wonderful time. And she also went and attended the dinner with us. And even at the dinner, we got there at 6 o'clock, and we were leaving the same time the staff was leaving. We shut the place down. I've never shut down a restaurant before, but we were just having a great time spending quality time with all our fig collectors and getting to know them and talk to them in person. It was great. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you're not already a subscriber, we invite you to hit the subscribe button, follow us, and as we bring more content to you. And don't forget, keep growing, keep building, and always keep adventuring together. We're Farmington Famous. We'll see you next time.